Hi, everyone. Welcome to Anderson Ranch. I want to extend a welcome to our virtual audience, as well as our board and national council members who may be in attendance. Thank you for your support. I'm Betsy Alwyn. I'm Artistic Director of Ceramics and Expanded Media. I'm excited to introduce our visiting artist, Noelle Choy. Before we begin, though, please silence your cell phones. I want to begin by saying that Anderson Ranch acknowledges that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. Through our mission to promote a wide range of arts, cultures, and voices, we commit to partner with and honor the indigenous ancestors and residents of this sacred land where we learn, work, and create. Noelle Choy's work lives mostly as performative objects and video to seek counter-narratives in cultural myth-making and the phenomenon of getting big inside our bodies. Often working in collaboration, she uses improvised methods and materials to distort biographies, thinking about reenactment and the celebration in closeness. Noelle has been awarded residencies from the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, Acre, Vermont Studio Center, Bunker Projects in Pittsburgh, and Stoveworks, and has received fellowships from Anderson Ranch, Arrowmont School of Arts and Crafts, Virginia Museum of Fine Arts and Sculpture, as well as the Seebacher Prize for Fine Arts through the American Austrian Foundation. She has exhibited, curated, and performed both nationally and internationally, including at Socrates Sculpture Park in Long Island City, New York, Christie's at Rockefeller Center in New York, Proyecto Picaro in CDMX, and Fortress Hohensalzburg in Salzburg, Austria, among others. She grew up between her parents' houses in the DC metropolitan area before receiving her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in Sculpture and Extended Media from Virginia Commonwealth University in 2014, and a Master of Fine Arts in Sculpture from Cranbrook Academy in 2022. Noelle is currently an assistant professor at Kansas City Art Institute in the painting department. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Noelle Choy.
Hi. So I'm like clicking here, but also clicking on my computer. So I'm gonna, if there looks like there's a lot of activity going on, that's what I'm doing. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Anderson Ranch. It's kind of crazy. The first time I was here was for a workshop a really long time ago. And I saw Catherine Opie give a lecture, and I was like, that's so crazy. That's her. Okay, anyways. All right, now I'm going to click at the same time. I'm going to start with a little story to kind of introduce you to my work. My mom's house was not dirty, but it was packed with stuff. There was a walkway lined with stacks of magazines and toys. We saw it, but we didn't see it. The dog shed on the carpet and also in curious places like the toilet seat and the top of the stove. My brother and I would come home from school and throw our jackets on the other jackets on the banister, with stacks of things I couldn't name living on the dinner table with 3 place settings carved out. Oh, there. On the last day we were in the house, the mover says we weren't ready to move. The 3 of us had clustered no more than 10 boxes into the living room, scavenged from behind liquor stores, oddly shaped, and not the kind ideal for moving a 3-story townhouse. My mom had said, you can start with these boxes. She was not a quiet person, but she had a way of speaking when she didn't know if what she was saying was okay or true. Without furniture in the townhouse, things that had caked into crevices between other things had fallen over. The accumulation of a jumbled mess separated into individual pieces, and suddenly I was on a mission to save everything I could because whatever I didn't save would be thrown away and lost forever, and that was completely devastating. Upstairs in my mom's bedroom, she had a king-size bed that took up the entire room. You could slide inside and spread open the tightly tucked sheets into the cold parts with your legs. The wide window to the right and her Chinese dresser on the left. One time, the sun shifted one of its jade appliques in the shape of a woman. There's a glue mark where it shifted. She'd showed me when it happened as if it were a regular thing. The woman had melted 1/4 of an inch east. I remember grabbing clothes, mentally apologizing to everything I didn't take, memorizing everything exactly as it was. Balanced and condensed. It was all extremely important, but there was no way to save everything. I saved a giant pop-up Noah's Ark book. I figured it would be really important to have and was convinced that if I didn't take it, I would think about it for the rest of my life. I have dreams about this day a lot, of re-entering the house, my room, and all this stuff. My brother, who was 9 at the time, told me recently that all he remembers is seeing my mom sitting in the middle of the living room on the floor crying, and how he didn't know what to do. Parents are supposed to know what to do. They have the rules in the map that seem to fall away the older you get and you figure out there are no rules. I think about trying to make a home, trying to keep a home, and discovering the complexity of this as life gets more hilarious and tragic. I think about the moments that repeat themselves throughout your life, like reverberations that come back again, and when they come back again, they feel more like distortions. I've been thinking about this in context of reenactments. Sven Lutkin describes reenactment in this compilation of essays called Life Once More, Reenactment Contemporary Art. So these are 2 of the tenets he talked about. It's really, really, really good. You should look it up. The whole PDF's online. But this is just a couple excerpts. So he says, reenactment always presupposes a missing body. Consider how the term enactment relates to the law, decree, edict, mandate, and to the theater, dramatization, acting, impersonation. In both cases, a unique body has been replaced by an endless series of bodies that are interchangeable with one another across time and space. And then part 2 is reenactment uses the body as a medium for reproducing the past. Every reenactment is a form of natural history, which is centered upon the comings and goings of human beings. Timelines breaking off and creating something new, an alternative positioning. In biographies, we can imagine tiny moments of possibility with each memory playing and replaying, or fictional departures describing something that could have happened. How do I continue to follow the cycles of those before, and how do I diverge from that path? The divergence is the moment the myth is created because a new thing is proposed into existence. It's kind of like a glitch in a biographical narrative to deviate or to reinvent. When my dog died, I took her ashes on tour across the country to all the places she had lived plus imagined heavens. This was kind of my first, wow, I can really do anything. This chaotic and celebratory way of thinking about art making that felt really real. Each location was a karaoke memorial service where I shot her ashes out of a confetti cannon. It was filmed by whoever was around, so my dad, my friends, and it was all compiled into a film. The image on the right was the final heaven. It was Burger Heaven, if anyone knows that restaurant in New York. So it was very much like a departure kind of from like a joke I had to myself about if I could take her on tour again, like a final tour. So the restaurant, Burger Heaven, they had a lot of fun helping with the event. We kind of just showed up and we were like, can we throw a party? And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. Here's a part of it. This is the corner where outside the apartment that we lived in Brooklyn. This is my roommate. We can watch like a little bit of it. I don't really want to play the entire thing, but this was the compilation video. So this one was shot by my dad. He was really embarrassed and refused to climb the mountain with me.
Lady, you was the only dog I wasn't afraid of. I'm afraid of dogs, but I liked you.
Hi, lady. We're waiting for
whole thing is on my website. I'm not gonna play it because I'm gonna keep going. But it's pretty good. This is the Spinners. This is the Spinners. It was a record that I brought with me all around the country. This was Joshua Tree. The record was melting. It was really bad for the record.
Gave me the strength to find someone to
I'll just play it. It's fine.
So
I kind of want to watch it.
I'm glad you walked
This is the Dog Beach in Long Beach, California.
found love.
That's just a dog that was just, they're all just running around.
I'm truly glad to know you. Maybe soon you wanna go. Hey, but now I'm king on a throne. Whoa, girl, I'm kind of glad. So
Okay,
glad
now I'm gonna keep
you
going.
walked into my life.
Okay, sorry, I'm really sorry. But you can watch it on my website. The whole thing's there. So, my mom dying brought with it a lot of frustration and singular objects, trying to hold something that felt as enormous as love, right? Like grief, to me, didn't feel austere or black and dark. It felt like an orchestra. And I think that's a lot of how, it's kind of how I came into using performance as a medium. I was trying to find activation, right? Like something where, something that like could have more urgency in work. And sometimes that's in the body itself, like similar to like Sven Lutkin's idea of reenactment, right? Like it's the body through the medium that contains natural history. And sometimes like the body itself and physical motion makes the most sense. When I was beginning to kind of conceptualize like what this actually meant for my work. And I wanted to play with how the language of presenting something can create a momentum. So this is a piece that I did. It was called Dominate Yourself. So it was like dominating yourself, but it was misspelled. I never say that out loud, so it's always kind of funny to say the title out loud. So it had a pull-up bar on the back, and I did a pull-up, and then I slid out of its mouth. So it was a lot of thinking about, this was kind of one of the first pieces I did after my mom passed away, mysteriously, nobody knows why. And I was reading a lot of mythology and thinking about the dragon as this symbol, and like, it's very Chinese, it's a very Asian symbol. And wondering like the dragon, is it me or my mother or a third thing that's kind of a mediator? And is that a thing that I have to overcome to be outside of my physical capabilities? How can I prove myself as someone who has weight and strength and desire and ambition? In the same way that I wanted to challenge the singular object trying to contain everything, I wanted to challenge myself as a material, as the activation, like as that urgency. So this was the mouth of the dragon. It was all of the pictures of my mom's arms I had. So that was like the slide, and it was, I don't know, I was putting this together and I was like laughing because it was so funny, but I was also crying because it was really sad. But okay. Something representing something else can only pretend to do it, right? So it's not the actual thing, and it's performing its traits, the thing or feeling that memory's identity. If I was simulating strength, why not my actual physical strength? If I wanted movement, it doesn't need to be only implied. I could actually just make something move. This immediacy is where I began to think about the conceptual framework of performance itself and how it can function outside of literal theater, and also in our interactions, experiments, and objects, and like using those things as props. Especially recently, I've been thinking about how it's kind of performativity rather than literal performance, and that's the actual vehicle for like the simulation. The body reenacting something, it's a prop that stands in for something. So in this video that I'm gonna play a really short excerpt from, I raced my weight down a hill, kind of in and out of the sunset. So if you can imagine, the full video is a little over 6 minutes. So this is a 2.5-minute clip or cut of it. So it's supposed to be played so that the camera goes in and out of the sunset. Let's see. Okay, that worked. In this piece, I made a set of dentures using my baby teeth, and then I made a stunt video of me doing impossible things, like kicking a ball around the world or starting a fire in my hands. The footage appeared on a series of birthday cakes that I ate with the dentures, so it was like my past self consuming the impossible acts of the future, or like an alternate self. In the end, the footage of me eating the cake itself became a cake that was flung off of a building, and then I caught the cake below the building and then ate the cake, which is the final frame of the video. So this is the last frame of the video. Sorry, it sounds so repetitive to explain it. It sounds so crazy. This piece, it was a hallway to be entered and exited in both directions. And when you walked through it and you turned around, there were videos telling gradual versions of my earliest memory. And each time the memory ended differently, but it didn't end impossibly. So this is what the back of it looked like. And they were kind of, the text was superimposed from clips of different movies. So there was one of like Superman, when Superman tries to make the world go reverse or to bring Lois back to life. And then one was, it was a clip from Casper when Casper asks Casper asked Christina Ricci to dance with him. And then I don't remember. Oh, the last one was a scene from Smallville because I really liked that show when I was little. So here are the versions of the story. It's really sad, but it's basically my earliest memories when I thought my dad was leaving my family, but he was really just going to work. And it kind of is this thing that I thought about a lot when I was making this, where I was like all of these possibilities of something else may be happening, and they're all kind of devastating in their own way. And each video itself was a couple of minutes at longest, but I knew that nobody was standing through each video, so most people just thought it was the same video over and over again with just different backgrounds. But that was kind of funny though too, that all of the stories have the ability to blend together into one common narrative at the same time. The base of them had these little porcelain dogs, and so they had these rocks embedded in them that kind of mimicked the rocks that the videos were in too, and they were also in kind of descending order going around the base. This piece, the four sides of each of the tower holds a section of a single continuous photo that wraps around. So there is like a right way to walk around it. So you read the order of the poem. I was really hung up for a while on writing this line about having enough tongue to tie me together because it was kind of gross, but also kind of like seductive in a weird way. This is a picture of me skateboarding on my butt when I was little with my cousins. And as you walk around it, you can see me like go down the hill. And then the other photo is a picture of my aunt at the bottom of a mountain. She's like sideways, so it goes like that. They're standing on these ramps that are kind of little exhibitions. They have like a custom locket-sized portrait of my grandmother and like a little 2-inch Starry Night replica. So they're kind of the base of them, like, because they kind of looked like they're floating, was on top of these like little objects that I'd also made. This piece is really funny. This piece, it was for a show where you had to, it was themed around chairs. And I was like, can I put in a piece that has a chair in it? And they're like, fine. So this piece, you put your head in it as my head as a baby, but then you're hugging yourself as me as a baby. And I actually like this more as like a piece where like the documentation is the work, because when it's in a show, it's too much of like a game and it's not really, I don't know. It's fun, but I do enjoy it more as like the documentation of me in it. Okay, so back to kind of before when we're talking about reenactment and what Sven Lutking kind of theorized with his analysis of contemporary art, blah, blah, blah. He was talking about how reenactment kind of connects to performance and also theater. So the theater serves as that missing body, right? So here there's something about like the audience serving as the missing body. So there was a supercut film that we watched as much supernatural as we possibly could. We didn't get through all of it, but it's a supercut video of all the scenes where something gay happens, which is subjective. So guests can view the film while they're on this stage and watch the supercut video. This was also created in collaboration with my good friend Jordan Wong, who's an animator, and William Lanzillo. Do you know him? So this, so there was kind of this body of water on the outside. We set up a gutter system, so you're kind of in this like ecosystem of like water coming up around it, and so you can walk up and sit. This is a view from the stage. Jordan had gone to the Supernatural convention and got a bunch of tapestries made of him posing with the cast members. So there is something, again, about this, like, in pop culture, especially with this show. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with it, but it's a show created by white hetero men for white hetero men about white hetero men. So there was this, like, subtext of a lot of it being really gay. Like, some of the notes, hold on, I'm gonna try to, okay. Some of the notes on the wall were literally just like Dean and Sam dressed as priests at this point. And so it was us like, there are a few of us watching it, and a lot of us were trying not to watch the same episode. And then it kind of created this weird, like, alternative narrative in the show. I mean, lots of shows do this, right? Like, they ship characters together, and you're like, they love each other. So again, this was a really crazy project. There's another picture of Jordan with the cast of Supernatural. Here is, I don't know if you can kind of see this, but these were some of the notes that we had from the timestamps of the show. So all of these things relate back to reenactment, right? Like the inside jokes, the real world implications of these, like, subtexts of things. These are the things that come back again. They remind us that something's happened before, right? And that it can't be a coincidence, or it might be a coincidence, but that's kind of where it gets really interesting for me. Oh, yeah, and then we noticed that this piece I made looked like the Supernatural title photo on Netflix. So, excuse me. I forgot I had water. Could you hear that in the mic, me drinking? Okay. When we had to clean out my mom's house, we found, like, freshly folded laundry on the washer ready to go, as if she'd just been there. I spent more time taking pictures of things that we found in the house instead of cleaning. There was a set of milkshake spoons, like a freezer bag of old cell phones, a trash bag of, like, every sock we ever wore growing up, and, like, report cards and drawings and school projects, like a lot of gadgets. The Washingtonian Obama inauguration issue. So I thought a lot about these objects as, like, tracing, the things that we surround ourselves with, the things that we purchase, like the things that hold sentimental value. These are all kind of forms of reenactment too. Like, the objects themselves hold this information. I know this isn't, like, kind of a unique take or anything, but that's something that really resonates with me when I collect things, or when I look back on this, because it's kind of really silly, right? Like, it's like like Christmas cards that she never sent, and I think that all those things still retain that intention. So when I think about the things that help me, like, understand the world and help me learn joy and sadness and wanting to place myself, like, in the context of history, of like a lineage of people, I think about my mom immigrating to the US and how attached she was to her sister, who wasn't that much older than her. I think about how I wish that I was brave enough to sleep in her house that night and to kind of feel like some kind of tangibility with these objects. I think about her taking her Baptist name over her birth name, and over her American name, and looking for a real home in a place, and in a person, and in the impossible span of a lifetime. I think about the incredible ability we have to do impossible things and imagine something more. That's William. We're falling up and down the stairs. Who else was going to save every tooth that fell out of my mouth in a tiny velvet bag? I think a lot about my friends and how staying up late laughing and thinking of crazy ideas is a kind of a radical act of like research and accumulating information and thinking about how I'm still like present and alive and like connected to all these things. I think about the expectation to provide responsibly and to not shop too much online or keep things that should really be given away. I learned about trying really hard to be happy, peering over the shoulder of older people, over whiteness on TV and my own line of sight. I want something that feels connected to something bigger than the confines of formality or a description. Trying to articulate this feeling of always performing or complicity being so ingrained with our identities, I remind myself that the identities that we have, that we carry, are always truly in a state of fluctuation. And I think about how the slippage is where the most interesting moments are. This is my favorite text I've ever gotten. It's so funny. When things come back around in a timely or untimely manner, those are also moments that I'm really interested in. I texted my friend asking if I should buy this shirt that I used to have and then this clock that used to be in my room. And he was like, I just tried to buy a pair of shoes that they reissued as vintage style 2009 shoes. These are screenshots of my dad talking to my dog. This one looks like he's on a Zoom call, so this is my favorite one. And this is one of the last text messages my mom sent me. This is a picture of my dog's paw. So these moments of reflexivity, when time bounces back, it's a really big feeling. This is an excerpt from my grandfather's memoir that he wrote before he passed away, and he printed it and put it in binders and sent one to everyone in the family. I'm making my way through it. I'm obviously not that far. This is page 3. But I was really, I was screaming because like, it's just my father was a kung fu master. And I don't know, these are all things where it's like, when these stories that people in my family have just become stories and they lose their aliveness because we're so used to hearing stories and we separate them so much from the actual things and the actual people. And so I kind of look at these objects kind of as props, or these are the artifacts in my practice a lot that make their way back into it, like with photographs or things I find that I think are funny, or text messages, gifts from my friends and family. Those kind of make their way back into it, kind of in different capacities. I think slowly about this particular tightness in the middle of my body. I think about these small moments of freedom that we hold on to, because sometimes a person's there and sometimes they're not, and that seems like where the fiction and mythology begins. I'm working on a zine of how Christina Yang is the most complex character on Grey's Anatomy right now. Okay, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Noelle. We have some time for questions. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? I'll bring the mic. I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question about your relationship to affect, because one of the things that you said very early on in your talk was something like, how do you make something large enough to contain or actually express something as a concept as large as love? Mm-hmm. And I think we all kind of experience that as artists. We're trying to express a feeling, but you're doing it in these very minute, particular ways. Can you talk a little bit about what you're trying to express in your work?
So I tell my students this a lot, which, if anyone teaches, you really learn a lot by teaching. But I always use the example of like, if you wanted to make a piece about how much you loved your dog, I wouldn't believe you if you just painted a portrait of your dog. Like there has to be another way, right? And I think about all the work that I've made that have been really, really big productions because it felt like I needed like sound, and then I needed like someone running and doing something, and that kind of felt like getting at something from different directions a little bit. And I think of the affect existing in kind of not really not being sure, right? And kind of there being an unsteadiness with the work. I mean, recently I'm trying to work smaller, and small for me is still pretty large to a lot of people. But trying to like have these secrets or these discoveries within the work. And I like having, again, I know I said inside jokes already, but things that make me laugh, right? Like those things where I can bring in more care. I think that comes through when you're making something and you're like having fun. And that also is why working with my friends is really exciting, because we're having a good time doing it, and we're creating something that wouldn't exist unless we were working together. So I think sometimes with affect, it's like you're never gonna actually capture that, but you can get pretty close. So that's always a little comforting to think about.
Oh, thank you.
So you said something really beautiful about how grief was more of like an orchestra, and I was wondering, one, if you could speak a little bit more about that, and if you view other emotions in a similar way, and like, do they deviate in like the kind of symphonies that they make and how they affect you?
That's a really good question. And I think sometimes I have this like stubbornness about people describing my work as being really fun and happy. And I'm like, this is the saddest thing I've ever made. What are you talking about? And I think that comes from wanting kind of back to like the affect is, it's the thing that you can't describe, right? Like the thing you can't hold, and trying to get as close to that as possible is like, I don't know, like you don't know how to hold certain feelings until you feel them, like when they're just described, or when you try to find a language to, like when you write about something, unless you really know what it is. And I think that's the saddest part, is that like, it'll never be accurate. And it made me feel really excited to like still be alive and be able to make things, And it makes me feel even more connected to like all the work that was about like testing physical capacities. It was like how heavy, like what is my ability to do anything, right? And I think, okay, back to talking to my students, it's like, you could do anything and we would have to talk about it. Like that is crazy, right? Okay, I don't know. I yell a lot at them because it's like I can like, having access to resources to be able to produce anything and having people support you, I can't imagine another like more amazing thing to exist, right? Like, because art making is really, for me, developed into like how incredible it is to be able to make stuff with people you care about and try to share it with people and have it mean something, right? Like, yeah, and I think the emotion is because I'm like trying to find, I keep using the word activation, but I'm like, I need to find that thing that feels like it's doing something differently, right? Like, even if it's just an object, I'm like, what if it was filled with water, right? Like, what if there was some risk? And then I'm really, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think I just don't want to make something that looks nice, right? And I know that for me, that's just not something that I'm interested in. Does that answer your question? Sorry. Okay.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I was really struck by the piece of cake, the piece with the cake, and the dentures made out of the teeth and your children's teeth, or your teeth as a child is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're
Your
pretty
baby
gross.
teeth is what they're called. And it actually made me really sad. But I also, I saw the picture of you, and I was also thinking about that state of emotion of kind of laugh crying, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
And when you're kind of experiencing a memory or grief, but it's also maybe a funny action. And I just wonder, when you're kind of in motion in these experiences and you're trying them out, what's your state of mind? Do you go through different emotions? Are you feeling, I'm just curious about that.
About my state of mind. Okay, I guess this kind of goes back to what, it's just thinking of really ridiculous ideas and then being like, I could do that. I could figure out a way to make that. And that's really exciting where, they're slow, right? I don't immediately have those ideas, but I kind of follow tangents a lot in my mind. This is really bad and I shouldn't tell anyone this, but I get really good ideas while people are talking to me and I'm not listening to them. I'll be like, yeah. And then in my head, I'm like, oh my God, that was me. So sometimes it's just whatever, something that sticks with me, right? Certain pieces of writing. And I think that's why I'm so influenced by TV and movies, because these are the things we surround yourself with, right? This is what we look at growing up. It's the people I had a crush on, or it's the first exposure you had to a love story. And so I think I stopped, or I tried to be less ashamed of using these things that felt easy, because I was like, no, this is what my life was built on, right? Is these stories, or these memories of having of doing this thing very vividly when I was little in this house, and I think that speaks so much out, so much universally, and not just my own story, because we're all trying to make work that means something to us, right? And I think I'm kind of also just trying to do that. Does that answer your question?
Anyone else? Oh, here we go.
So it seems like you're using a lot of artifacts that have other people involved with them, like family and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you have a certain process in the studio of editing or manipulating in a certain way that you start to think about relationships, or how people start to convey those relationships in the work?
I think recently I've kind of stopped overthinking a lot of those things, and I've let them just freely come to me. I was showing William my lecture earlier, and he's like, maybe you can take out some of these text messages. And one of them was literally my dad texting me a picture of his kitchen counter filled with okra, and it just said okra. And for some reason, I was like, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. So sometimes I just I'm like, that needs to go somewhere. Because there's something in that language, right? Maybe I also grew up on the internet, so that could be part of it. But where the humor is so subtle, but that makes it so much funnier. And I'm talking to my friends all the time, in the studio. I'm like, is this art? And then it's a piece of trash, right? But that's something that I think is really builds my momentum a lot, is to kind of just allow myself to say yes to certain decisions. And then, because I don't know, I think that there is something very important about, to me, about these things that my work is about, and it feels really urgent, and it feels extremely political, and it feels extremely how am I able to do this, right? And that's something that I kind of remind myself a lot, is there's people around me, and I think that that's kind of a really important part of art making for me, is having these communities of friends, and my family, who I don't really even talk to that much, but they're really big inspiration.
Anyone else? I had another follow-up question Because
Yeah,
you're
sure.
a sculptor and you're making all of these sculptural objects that are you've described as props. I'm curious about what life they have beyond the instance where you're performing with them or they exist in time. Do you recycle them? Do they become parts of other performances, or do they exist or they change in different contexts?
I reuse a lot of work. I mean, really huge things I can only hold on to for, I mean, it's really sad. A lot of stuff I don't have anymore, but I do reuse things in different contexts and different pieces. And I think when I learned how to make things, I mean, especially in like undergrad, I really just thought I didn't know anything. I was like, I don't know how to make anything. And so I thought that like paper macheing was like the dumbest way to make stuff. But then I paper macheed my like butt off, and like the dragon was paper mache, which is really crazy. So I kind of came into a lot of materials from the perspective of me not using them correctly, and because of that, their afterlife is also me kind of manipulating them into other formats, especially for like stands or like monitors or I just have a lot of stuff around a lot, but yeah, I try to hold on to things.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, we have one more question.
Hello. I don't know if this is kind of a roundabout question, maybe.
No, that's all my questions, all my answers have been.
Period, exactly. No, I'm an ADHD baddie, so I get it. But I'm curious, I guess, about like, so we were talking about affect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And affect being like the chair that pushes back against you, right? So a lot of your work that I'm seeing is very like fantastical, like it's like this fantasy, and I'm wanting to know if there's like a fantasy that you feel like you still pay for. That is a question that I ask people quite often, but how fantasy operates in your life or in your work, especially pertaining to grief. Like, I don't know. You don't have to answer it now, but it's something that I constantly think about, is just how fantasy, or what is a fantasy that I still pay for or that I do pay for?
I really like that question. I mean, because I do think about that a lot with, at my mom's funeral, I read this excerpt from this book by Sheila Hiti, Motherhood, and it kind of talked about how you are the steward of all the people before you, or the custodian, sorry, her word was custodian, and how you carry these things with you. And it was so short, and I think it really had me thinking about like how I am at a point in time that is responsible for this point in time, And so because of that, like any departures that I take then has a new possibility, right? And like I think that's really exciting for me, because the stunt video, for instance, like it wasn't supposed to be like a good stunt video. It was supposed to be something that felt like I was trying to do something. Like that was really important, that it wasn't like video effects, that it was me like very clearly trying to do something so that I can create like this element of fiction within it too, where I am pretending and you can kind of tell that I'm pretending. And that was really important. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question either, but that is something I think about, is like, what is the world that can exist if this other thing had happened or can happen? And that's why I use a lot of imagery or text too, or like lyrics, because those things all kind of place us in certain points in time too, right? So when you say fantasy, I'm thinking about like a narrative, right? And kind of what I think I talked about it, but like when something can like glitch, or you can kind of recreate the ending to a story, right? Like that is just as believable as something else that is very close to it. And I think that proximity, or even, right, like when my brother asked me if I remembered Shalom Bao, I was like, wow, I really see where he got here, but it was still really funny. And those are moments of like fantasy too, where like this moment of like fiction is created. And sometimes I'm just like, that's art, right? Like I went on a research trip, I guess it was last summer, and my aunt was she asked my brother what he thought of her nails because she had just done them, and he was like, I don't understand. Like, he's like, oh, they're nice. And then I looked at her nails, and she had painted them the same color as her skin. So my brother didn't know what he was looking at. And I was like, Auntie, like, he can't tell you painted your nails. And she was like, oh, that's interesting. And then that was something where I was like, that's art, right? Like, no, and it's funny, but it's also like, those are the moments where I'm like, wow, like, this is just stuff that happens all the time. And these are like the little things that I think in like groups kind of build up into a piece somehow, because those are all things, like, the thing is funny because it's so ridiculous. But yeah, I guess that's my answer.
That answered it, yeah.
Thank you, Noelle. This was
Thank
really
you.
great.